So, good evening. Welcome to our Experiencing the Buddha's Teaching series of different sessions. We are now on the module of finding protection in refuge and karma. So, my name is Wai Chong, and I have been sort of progressively touching on the different topics of Buddhism. And hopefully we can look at it from a practical point of view. How can we not just understand the Buddha's teaching intellectually, but how can we try to create the conditions for us to actually experience those teachings within ourselves and to be able to see the effects of those teachings in our daily life, in our daily experience. So last week good evening, everybody. Yeah, Craig, Jennifer, welcome. So last week I started on the topic of karma, which is sort of a very popular Buddhist topic. But these days, most people would have heard of the word karma, whether you are Buddhist or not, and people may use it in a common conversation. Recently, I conducted a discussion group, private one, on the topic of karma. So I get to ask people, do you believe in karma, and what do you understand? Your version of what does it mean? This teaching on karma, and of course, it's sort of a Buddhist group, so everybody say they believe. But they all have slightly different version of karma. They understand different things, or they find certain aspect of karma very relevant. But then again, they may also have some difficulties with other aspects of karma. And I think that is true in general, that each one of us are most likely to have our own understanding of what it means. What does karma mean to us? And so it's good to, I'm not so much into establishing the one right version of karma, but I encourage people to investigate, to reflect on, based on your understanding of karma, and to check it out in your daily life, your daily experiences, to see whether there are anything in concordant with your understanding, or do you find any discrepancy, or do you find conviction in it, or you may have doubts about it. And these are the things that we investigate. And we sort of try to compare the teaching with our daily experiences, and we try to see which are the one that we find most helpful, most convincing. Yeah. So last week I touched on in Tibetan Buddhism we talk about the 4 general characteristics of karma, which I think is a good place to start to think about karma, to try to understand karma for ourselves, and also to try to bring our intellectual understanding or knowledge of karma closer to our actual experience, and see whether it can have a positive influence on us. So, for example, I think I mentioned it last week, like I just briefly repeat the 4 characteristics. The first one is there is a kind of definite relationship between the type of action and the kind of results that come forth from it. So we talk about in Buddhism, virtuous or wholesome actions are conducive for happiness, and non-virtuous or unwholesome actions are conducive for suffering as a result. Yeah, so there is a definite relationship. Second is to highlight that even small actions, or what we tend to regard as minor, insignificant actions, or just very routine choices, those things can actually bring great results or strong results. So just because the action can be very minor or seemingly insignificant doesn't mean that the result will also be minor and insignificant. That's not necessarily true. The third general characteristic is if I do not act in such a way as to create the causes, then I wouldn't get to experience the corresponding result. So let's say if I long for happiness, but instead of creating or acting in such a way that I'm creating the causes for my happiness, all I did was to sit around and sort of complain or feeling sorry for myself. And then I have to ask myself, this kind of actions, be it physical, verbal, or even mental. Mental means the kind of thoughts that I indulge in. Are these actions the cause of my happiness? And if I'm not creating the causes for my own happiness, then I cannot expect to experience the result of happiness. Yeah, so I find this particular, the third point, very poignant to me. So now and then I would remind myself, ask myself, instead of mopping around and complaining, grumbling, feeling unhappy, I will ask myself, hey, am I acting in such a way that my actions are the causes for my happiness? Maybe not. Feeling sorry for myself, unfortunately, dwelling on those thoughts are not the causes of happiness. They're probably the causes for greater misery. So if I keep doing it, if I consistently return to those thoughts, then I know what sort of result to expect. I will feel more and more miserable, really. Right? And the fourth general characteristic is when we do act, our actions, they don't just just disappear, or they're not wasted. No, they will, in their own time, given the conditions, bring forth results. So it's not possible to undo the past. So I create certain actions, so it will have certain impact. Of course, I don't know how it would come back to influence me, because my actions will interact with other people's actions and with other conditions. So it gets very complicated very quickly. But nonetheless, having act, it's like I'm sending forth, it's like dropping a pebble into a pool of water. The rippling effect is already there, the moment I act. And so I should not think that my actions are of no consequence. Even though I may not see the effects of my action immediately, or it may not be obvious, but nonetheless, I can sort of hold on to that conviction that all my actions have some effects. How they manifest, of course, depend on a lot of different conditions, but they do have effect. They don't just sort of get forgotten, or traditionally they say it will not be wasted. Right? So those are the four general characteristics. And today I thought to start by just talking about, in relation to these four points, what does it mean to say that I'm able to experience the Buddha's teaching of karma in a more personal way? Not just as intellectual knowledge, but actually it somehow is transformed into my actual experiences, or it has a very real kind of effect on me, on myself. And for that, we need to put some energy into being mindful of them in our daily life. I don't mean we need to keep repeating them to ourselves, but there may be occasions where we can apply them, in our daily life, in our consideration, in our contemplation, and even in our choice of actions, to act or to not act. So, for example, take the case of the second one. Just think about even small actions can have great results. And one way to understand this is to think of it as like you have a container, like a pot, and I'm filling it up with droplets of water from a dropper, let's say. So no matter how small the droplets might be, if I consistently keep adding them to this container, one day the container will be full if I'm consistent in adding to it. So even tiny droplets of water accumulated over a period of time can fill up a container. basically of any size. It's just a matter of how big the droplet is and how much time you have. And I find this very encouraging. Is this image is that even though day by day, maybe my effort in certain direction, or doing certain things like meditation, might be very small, and if effect may not be apparent, may not be immediately apparent, obvious, but there's something to the fact that to persevere and to keep coming back patiently to it again and again. And there is a cumulative effect, which is not insignificant. It can make a difference. And this is how one way I can encourage myself to persevere, to remember to put in the next drop. Right? And related to this, there is also a kind of a teaching that I heard. Because most of the time, we being human beings, instead of taking care to add the next drop to my container, I'm actually more interested in looking over at other people's containers. Oh, what have they been doing lately? And then we like to judge other people. That came up quite often when we are in conversation with others, with friends or whatever. We like to talk about other people's practice. It's like passing judgment, or basically it's this gossip. Yeah. And I read a teaching by the great Thai Buddhist master Ajahn, wonderful teacher. I never met him, but I read quite a bit of his teaching. And he said, I read once, he said, looking at other people's Dharma practice, spiritual practice, and judging other people's spiritual practice is not a spiritual practice. It's not a Dharma practice. So no matter how much time I spend talking about other people's practice, judging whether it's good or bad, and giving my own opinions about that whole activity is, from a Dharma point of view, it in itself, there's nothing spiritual about it. It's basically, of course, as I said, it's just been plain old gossiping, yeah? And it's not a Dharma practice. So instead of spending so much time looking at and judging whether people are adding enough droplets of water to their own container, and having my own opinion about whether they're doing it rightly or wrongly, maybe I can make use of that time, come back and add yet another drop of practice to my own container. And that might have a more positive effect. So I thought about this quite often. And of course, like any ordinary human beings, when we are with friends, and I might find myself talking and passing judgment, giving opinions. And now and then I will catch myself doing it. And I will remind myself, maybe it's better to come back and add yet another drop to my own container. One way to really put these 4 general characteristics into practice is to take some time to identify for ourselves, to have a clearer idea of what do I mean by happiness. What is the happiness that I long for? What is the happiness that I seek? And then ask myself, have I been creating the causes and conditions for me to achieve the happiness, right? For me to accomplish the happiness, however I define it to be? Because I really like to think of karma, not so much as explaining what has happened in the past and how that is ripening in my current experience. I really like to think of karma as forward-looking, like asking myself, what am I doing now that enable me to create the future that I wish for? So asking myself, what are the actions, what are the choices that I can make now or not? And that will have a really positive effect on myself in the future. That will bring the happiness that I long for, to me. And what are the kind of actions I can create immediately right now? So this is a forward-looking aspect of karma, of how through our choices, through our actions, we are shaping our future. We are creating our future actively again and again. So I find this a very uplifting aspect of the Karma teaching. So I would like to maybe suggest we start with a short contemplation. This is a contemplation that maybe some of you already done with me, which I really like, and I periodically will come back to it. To start with in a way, two parts of it. The first part is to ask myself this question: what do I really need in order for me to be happy? What do I really need? Or sometimes you can change the word. Some people would prefer to say, what do I really want in order for me to be happy? So this is an investigation into my own definition of happiness. What is it? And what are the factors? What is involved in me being happy? What do I need? What do I feel I need in order for me to be able to convincingly say, I'm happy? And periodically, I will come back to this guiding question, because I think it's helpful to help us to clarify for ourselves where we are heading, where we want to arrive. And what is it that we long for? And it's an aspiration. And each time I do it, I come up with different answers. I might have different emphasis, or sometimes it may be the same one. Sometimes I'm being quite consistent. Yeah. So that is the first part, asking myself, what do I really need in order for me to be happy? So it's an aspiration. And having done that, then the next question is, then we can ask ourselves, what are the causes that I need to create? What are the actions that I need to create in order for me to achieve this goal of happiness, in order for me to be happy? How do I need to act or not act? What do I need to, what changes do I need to make to my own behavior, to the kind of choices and decisions I've been making in order for me to bring this happiness, to make it real into reality. Yeah. So there's this two part of it. First is to identify what does happiness mean to me, what is involved in that happiness, and second is to reflect on, in accordance to the Karma teaching, what are the causes needed in order for me to be happy? What sort of actions I need to do, or what sort of actions I need to refrain from doing, I need to stop doing in order for me to actualize happiness. So, and in so doing, hopefully this gives us an opportunity in the context of a short meditation or contemplation to maybe apply some of the four general characteristics. Not in a very specific way, but to bring it in and to sort of connect it with our own experiences, with our own longing for happiness, and see what comes out of it. So let's do that first before we continue talking about karma. So I invite you to just find a comfortable posture, meditation posture that allows you to settle your body into the next 15 minutes or so, and 15-20 minutes, and we can do a contemplation and meditation together. Feel free to sit. You can sit on a chair like what I'm doing, sit on the floor, on a cushion, in the privacy of your own place, your own room, wherever you are. You may find it more comfortable to lie on your back, on the floor, on a yoga mat, or maybe on the firm bed or whatever. Make sure that the support that you're resting on is something very stable, solid, give you a sense of stability to the posture. So take a few moments and just sort of adjust your body, allow your body to settle into your posture. I'm going to ring the bell to signal the start of the meditation. So take a few moments, allow the body to find its way to settle into the posture we have adopted. Allow the body to feel that the posture is very stable, very solid, and that it is well supported in this posture. The sense of support is very reassuring to the body and can help to promote a sense of unwinding, whereby the body can loosen up, can begin to let go of some of the unnecessary tensions, tightenings. And so much so that given time, the body may actually be able to settle down comfortably into the posture. And next, we're going to just take a few minutes at the beginning of the meditation to see if we can help body and mind to shift gears, to transition into meditation, to put aside things that might be preoccupying them or disturbing them. So to do that, we're going to make use of the breath as a support. See if you can rest your attention on some of the sensations of the breath that you may experience in the different parts of your body. See if you can fully notice and experience the in-breath and the out-breath. You may notice the breath sensations around the nostrils, or you may notice the movements of your chest as you breathe in and out. And maybe some of you might even notice the movements of the abdomen, the movements of rising and falling, synchronized with the breath. So see if you can rest your attention on these or other sensations associated with the breath, with the natural rhythm of the breath. And tune into a subtle feeling of release that comes along with each out-breath. Breathing out, we have to relax the muscles of the chest and diaphragm in order to release the carbon dioxide back into the air. So each time we breathe out, offer us the opportunity to deepen a sense of release. Breathing out, maybe some of the unnecessary tension and discomfort in the different parts of the body. Maybe some of them may flow away with the breath. Likewise, some of the thoughts that might be preoccupying our mind, our attention, maybe we can also let them go with the breath. So coming back here and now, return your attention to the breath sensations, attending to the breath with each out breath. See if you can remind your body and mind with the word release. And then we can allow this process of releasing, of settling down body and mind to continue in the background. While we turn our attention first to the guiding question, what do I really need in order for me to be happy? So I invite you to ask this question. You can imagine dropping this question into your own heart, your own mind, and see how your heart and mind may respond to the question. Maybe some images, some ideas may pop into your mind. This is an opportunity with the help of the question for you to explore your own definition of happiness. What do you think are the conditions needed for you to be happy? What do I really need in order for me to be happy? Ask the question, pause, investigate, and feel free to come back to the question again and again as a support to help you deepen your exploration. So coming back to the question, ask the question to yourself, what do I really need in order for me to be happy? So feel free to compile a list, which can be very short, only one item if that is relevant to you. It can also be very long. In the privacy of your contemplation and meditation, feel free to be honest with yourself and see if you can gather up all the different conditions that you feel you need in order for you to be happy. So coming back to the contemplation, when you find yourself distracted, carried away by the different thoughts or ideas, quite far away from the topic, then invite your attention to come back here and now. Ask yourself the question again and start again. What do I really need in order for me to be happy? So coming back to the guiding question, explore it in your own way and see if you can compile a short or long list of conditions that are favorable to your definition of happiness. And feel free to continue this exploration if you need more time. If you do have a list, then see if you can start on the next part of the contemplation, asking ourselves, am I accumulating, am I creating the conditions, the actions to bring about such happiness for myself? So what are the actions I need to create, and have I been creating them in order for me to be truly happy? Coming back to the contemplation, just as the general characteristic of karma has stated, we can ask ourselves, am I creating the right kind of actions to serve as causes for my happiness? And we can ask ourselves, am I acting, accumulating even small actions which can bring forth great result as well in that direction? And we can remind ourselves, if we don't create the corresponding actions, we don't get to experience their results. And if we are consistently creating the right kind of action, then we can be assured that those actions will not be wasted. So in your own way, take a few minutes, reflect on what are the actions you need to create in order for you to experience the happiness you so desire. And then finally, conclude the meditation. Maybe we may be able to bring forth an aspiration, aspiring to create the right kind of actions, the right kind of causes and conditions that are conducive for us to experience the happiness that we so long for. that we seek. Okay, so that's just a short meditation, which I periodically will come back to because I find it very helpful and I get different answers at different time. Different times, my mind is in a sort of different place, and even though they're more or less kind of consistent, but I might remember or highlight a different aspect of the happiness that I long for, and it's also helpful to remind myself that what is it that I'm seeking, what is really important to me. This is what these are what I want to accomplish. This is the kind of happiness that I long for myself. And then to ask myself, have I been creating proactively the causes and conditions for me to enjoy such happiness? And sometimes I might find, and quite often, of course, that I'm actually distracted by my old habits. We all carry a lot of habits with us, habitual way of reacting and dealing with things. And we need to reassess them and see whether are they still helpful, are they still in line with where I want to go and what I want to accomplish, or maybe not. Maybe they are counterproductive. Maybe they are sort of, in a way, even though they are so familiar and so habituated to it, they are actually hindering me from achieving what is most important to me. So it's important periodically to reassess and to bring what is theoretical and intellectual and bring it down to the level of our actual experiences, our longing, our hopes, our desires and aspirations, and to see whether the teaching can be helpful to help us to actualize those aspirations. Normally, when people present the topic of karma, we tend to get very sort of involved in the nitty-gritty of karma. I suppose we're all trying to figure out what is the right thing to do, and am I doing it right, and so that we can be assured that I will get the corresponding result. Unfortunately, I'm not that good, and I don't know. I mean, most of the time, I have no idea whether I try, but I don't know whether it's right or wrong. And also, I think human actions, human motivation, which is what in Buddhism we emphasize a lot, the motivation behind actions. It's a pretty complicated thing. And I also believe we are very good at deceiving ourselves. So a lot of the time, the explanation we give to ourselves or we give to others verbally, describing or expressing our so-called motivation, may not actually be true. So maybe beyond what we are willing to acknowledge or to express. If you dig a bit deeper, there are other kinds of motives, other kinds of stuff going on, pushing us in different directions. So I'm not always very convinced when I say I'm doing this in order to benefit all sentient beings. Most of the time I feel I'm just paying lip service to that so-called motivation. And maybe there are other things motivating me, a bit hidden from view. So I would like to present for the karma from the point of view of encouraging us to, instead of the way to go ahead, to move ahead, is actually to pay closer attention to our actions, to try to be mindful and notice for ourselves what are the kind of actions I have been creating and what are motivating those actions? What are my so-called true motive, as best as we can, and then to discern for ourselves. Are these actions working? Are they bringing forth the desired result, or maybe not? Yeah. So I think it's something we can investigate by paying closer attention to. So I would like to present the next for the rest of the session a way of analyzing how in the teaching how they present the different component of an action. And by learning about it, I hope it will enable us to draw our attention to the different aspects of action. And by considering it as a whole, it gives us a better kind of awareness of what is involved in our actions, what to look out for, and how they influence the result. Yeah. So in Tibetan Buddhism, when we talk about karma, we present an action. Action in Buddhism can refer to physical actions and what we do with our body, physically how we behave, can be verbal action, so speech, but not necessarily speech. These days we communicate in other ways, through writing, through texting, so all forms of communication you can come under verbal action, verbal karma. So physical action, verbal action, and also mental action. Mental action is the kind of thoughts that we indulge in, the way we think. How have I been thinking about this situation? So thinking in itself is a kind of action. So the kind of thoughts or stories, so to say, the stories we indulge in, that we repeat to ourselves or we repeat to others over and over again, those are related to our mental actions. Yeah. So these are the three different kinds of actions. But all actions, we can analyze them, and we can identify 4 components. So maybe good to now and then to when we are in a good frame of mind, we might want to pay closer attention to these 4 components of our actions. The first component is we call basis. So what is the basis of my action? The basis could be an easy way is actually the object that is involved in my acting. Like for example, I feel thirsty, so I reach out for this cup of tea. That cup of tea is the basis, so to speak, of this action. This very simple action, almost reflex action, yeah, so that I can drink. So the basis, and why do we need to be mindful of the basis? Because we may notice that in relation to one particular kind of basis, we seem to have a particular kind of reactions, which is absent in relation to others. Let's say most common basis is to do with people. For a particular person, you might notice, why am I always behaving in this way? Why am I always reacting in this way? Why my speech, my body language, and my thoughts seems to be very kind of stereotype. It's always the same way towards this person, but it's very different when I'm in the company of others. Other people don't have that kind of impact or effect on me. So that is one way we can understand, be mindful of the basis, how the basis affect me, how do I act in relation to the different bases. Yeah. So that is the first thing, to know the basis, the object. So it can be a person, can be a material object, can be a particular situation. Like for example, I have a lot of anxiety to do with airport, not the plane, not the airplane, but the airport. Yeah, I don't know why. So the airport is the basis. It's a particular situation in which it triggers, certain kind of reaction in me, and because I react in that way, I have all this anxiety feeling. So I also act in a particular way. I will go very early to the airport, like 3 hours before my flight, so to speak. So it has certain effect on me. And the more I'm aware of that effect of the basis, the more mindful I am, then it's more likely I'm able to choose a course of actions that is appropriate, that don't aggravate the situation. Right? So, for example, if I know I will be panicking if I'm late and so on, and when I panic, then maybe I might have say nasty things to my travel companion. Then so what I often say these days is I will tell, if I'm traveling with people, I will say, I will see you on the plane. Yeah. So I won't wait for you at the check-in. I won't wait for you at the gate. I don't care what you do. I will get myself onto the plane, and hopefully I will see you there. Yeah. So then that really helped me. Then I don't have to worry about this and that. I don't have to get all kind of nervous, and then I wouldn't start to have all these negative thoughts about myself or others. Yeah. So basis, once you are more aware of it, then we enable us to make a better choice of actions and so forth. So basis is the first component of action. The second component, which is very important in the Buddhist teaching, this is the attitude behind our action, our choice of action. Attitude. And attitude is usually divided into three aspects: perception, intention, and motivating factors. That's my words, how I would like to word them. Perception is how I perceive the basis, how I perceive the situation, how I perceive the person. And perception is the place where very often we make mistakes. Right? Prejudice has to do with perception. I have a stereotypical way of perceiving a particular person, a particular group of person, and therefore I tend to react in a certain way. So if I'm more mindful of my perception, then maybe I can do something about it. I can check whether is my perception accurate, or am I being deluded. So perception is one component of attitude. The second component is the intention. Also intention. Intention is like, what do I want to do? So if I'm thirsty, I have an intention that I want to drink water, drink tea. Someone hurts me, I have an intention to retaliate, to harm them. Or another intention would be, I see someone suffering, I have an intention that I want to relieve the suffering, to help. So that's intention. Okay, so perception, intention, and of course the third one is the most important one, the motivating factors. What motivates me to do this, to help or to harm? So for example, to harm, the motivating factor could be anger, could be hatred even, could be sometimes we talk about malice, ill will, could be cruelty. So those are motivating factors that influence the kind of intention, that influence the kind of action I do. Or conversely, motivating factor could be compassion. Out of compassion, I have an intention to help. Out of love, I have an intention to care, to do something caring, to express that care and concern. Motivating factor could be wisdom. Wisdom, seeing clearly what is happening, and therefore there's an intention to speak out, or to act, or not, or to refrain from doing something. So motivating factors. So the three together form attitude. And this is actually one of the very important aspects of Buddhist teaching, is to take care that the perception is accurate, that we are not kind of deluding ourselves, or being deluded by others. Perception, that we perceive the situation, the person, the object accurately, and that we are not kind of superimposing our own or projecting our own ideas, our own prejudice, our own delusion onto the situation or onto the person, which is actually very common. So perception, to be mindful of the kind of intention we harbor, like I was talking about this intention to harm, to retaliate, which is a very instinctive reaction when we are hurt. Of course, we different people respond differently, but a very common one is to wish to retaliate. It's almost instinctive, almost like reflex, and so that is the intention to harm, to retaliate. right? And if we don't catch it in time, we may actually act upon it already. It may be expressed in harsh speech, it may express physical in aggressive behavior. And so intention is something to watch and to be mindful. And the last one is motivating factors. These are the things that, the motivating factor is the one that really affect whether the action is considered virtuous or non-virtuous. If they are motivated, we are motivated by what we call afflictive attitudes or distorted emotions, then quite often that action turn out to be non-virtuous or unwholesome. But if we are motivated by positive qualities of heart and mind, virtuous qualities, then the action becomes wholesome or virtuous in nature, right? So that is attitude, the second component of an action. The third component is, it's pretty straightforward. The third component of an action is actually the kind of the performance of the action. How do we carry out the action? How do we go about acting? So this could be through speech, through physical behavior. It can also be like through thoughts. Continue to dwell on a certain kind of thinking. Now this is where we also need to pay attention. I like to say this phrase or this slogan. We say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Because so often we may emphasize the fact that my attitude, I have good intention, but I don't pay attention to the choice of actions. How do I actualize that good intention? And sometimes the wrong choice of actions, the wrong executed, performing it carrying out in the wrong way, can also be harmful, even though my intention, my initial intention is a good one, but my choice of action could be a really bad one. So we also need to look into the third component, which is the choice of action, the choice of how do I perform, carry out that action. And the fourth one is also important, is the completion of the action. Because there are occasions where we started on a project, but we never finish it. So it's sort of half finished. We started on an action, but midway, as we become more mindful of it, we may choose not to finish it, or we may choose to finish it. And that makes a difference also. And this also is important. Like I might start to say things. I might even plan already to say something. And as it comes to the tip of my tongue, I might choose to keep my mouth shut. I terminate that action before it's completed, or before even the words have a chance to leave the mouth. Because I might, with mindfulness, I might decided that no, that is not a good course of action. That is not something that I really want to complete or bring to completion, because it's maybe it's not helpful. Right? So completion of action, the fourth one, is also important. Occasion, it is important to complete what we start. And other occasion, it is important to put a stop to it before it reaches the end. So depending on the situation. So these are the four components of an action. And I hope by talking about it, then we might become more aware of what constitute a complete action. And these four occasions of an actions, there are ample opportunity to bring mindful attention to them and to investigate whether they are appropriate, whether they are helpful, or they may be harmful. So just to quickly repeat, the basis in relation to acting, the attitude that I have in mind. The attitude includes the perception, include the intention, and most importantly, the motivating factors. And the performance of the action, the choice, the carrying out of the action. And the last component is the completion of the action. So if we manage to do a complete action, then of course it's a very powerful thing, for good or for bad. So it's helpful to analyze our just bring greater awareness to different activities in our daily life, the different choices that we make, and to see how the different components contribute to the results of that action. Right? So feel free to, just a reminder, you can ask questions or post your comments on the live chat if you have any, and I will try to attend to them. So that is a way of presenting karma, analyzing actions into the 4 components. Most people will be familiar with the Buddhist description of the 10 virtuous action and the 10 non-virtuous action. So I just, and these are just examples. This does not exhaust all possible actions, but the Buddha tend to draw attention to our non-virtuous actions, and ask us, at least in the minimum, to refrain and to refrain from doing this kind of harmful actions. The Dalai Lama quite often advise, in a simple way, he would say that in Buddhism, at least we try not to harm others, and if possible, we try to help others. So in the minimum, at least, we try to avoid harming others, or also avoid harming ourselves. That's the minimum. Then if we can do more than that, then we try to be helpful. So non-virtuous actions are supposed to be actions that bring suffering as a result. So at the minimum, we try to avoid or try not to create these non-virtuous actions. So let's have a look. Let me briefly touch on these non-virtuous actions. There are 3 of body: killing, stealing, and engaging in sexual misconduct. Sexual misconduct, in a very simple, general way, is harming ourselves or others through our sexual activity, which can create a lot of suffering through that. So killing, stealing, engaging in sexual misconduct are the 3 non-virtuous actions of body. I mean, a lot of you probably already know about this, but I just thought maybe to mention it. 4 of speech, which are actually quite difficult to avoid. Lying means telling falsehood, untruth. Lying, harsh speech, which is to say words in such a way that hurts others. Harsh speech can be pleasant, can come out sounding pleasant, but nonetheless still hurtful. So those are still harsh speech. The third one is what we call divisive speech. This is speech to divide people, to destroy the harmony between within a relationship between 2 persons. Or sometimes we call it slander. So that's divisive speech. Or another way is to prevent people from coming together. People they're trying to overcome their misunderstanding, to try to reconcile with one another, and you speak in such a way that intensify the differences, intensify the conflict, to prevent them from coming together harmoniously. It's also divisive speech. And the 4th one is called idle gossip. And this is the interesting one. When I was studying Buddhism, I have friends who would say, "Oh no, I will not sit with other classmates during lunchtime because we are talking. I mean, we're not talking anything significant." And they would interpret this as we are engaging in idle gossip, because as the name implies, idle gossip, we're just talking about nothing. Basically, just whatever comes to mind. Actually, there is a definition for idle gossip, and sometimes I suggest people not to be too. I mean, if you want to be really strict, you may find that you have almost nothing to talk about with others. Really, idle gossip are speech that what it does, it increases the afflictions of ourselves, others. Like, for example, talking in such a way that increases my attachment or another's attachment, or increases my anger or another's anger. So those are called idle gossip, because they are speech that promote a negative result. Right? Most of the time, our speech are maybe idle, maybe idling with this, but they are important to help us to connect with others. So they are actually quite helpful. Could you repeat the three non-virtuous actions? So the three non-virtuous actions of the body, physical one, killing, stealing, and engaging in sexual misconduct, right? The four of speech is lying, harsh speech, speaking in hurtful way, talking in hurtful way. The third one is divisive speech, that divide people. The fourth one is idle gossip. Right? Idle gossip, I was trying to explain. It's not just any conversation. It's conversation or speech that has the effect of promoting an afflicted state of mind. Get people more disturbed, get people more angry, get people more attached or more jealous. So it sort of stirs up this kind of negative or harmful emotions. Then we call that idle gossip. And it's good to try to avoid engaging in that. And the last three actions of the mind is these are expressed in the mind in the way we think, right? The first one is covetousness, so which is very common these days, especially since we can't actually go shopping. So we have a lot of thoughts of covetousness, just thinking, covetousness, coveting, craving something that we don't have. The second of mind is ill will, or sometimes called malice, or you can call it harmful intent. So nurturing thoughts, which include an element of harming others. Yeah. So, like as I said, retaliation belongs to harmful intent. The wish to get back at somebody that has hurt us, which is understandable. We're upset, we're angry, but if we indulge in it, then it's almost like we're plotting our revenge, right, so to speak. Yeah. So there's a question: how does ill will towards a person actually hurt them? Oh, it doesn't hurt them. That's the problem. You see, so I might harbor intense anger and ill will towards someone that has hurt me, and the unfortunate effect is it hurts myself. My ill will immediately destroy my happiness, my peace of mind. It doesn't actually get back at that person, doesn't actually harm the person, which is why it is all the more unhelpful to indulge in such thoughts of ill will. Right? Although the intention I'm nurturing is to get back at somebody, to hurt them, in retaliation to the hurt I experience due to their actions. But the actual effect is that my own ill will, my own thoughts of ill will, are actually harming myself. Long before it harmed the other person, I'm actually hurting myself. I'm sort of adding fuel onto fire and really flaming it up. Yeah. So that is the second non-virtuous of thought. And the third one is holding a wrong view. So this wrong view means a view that are not in accord with reality, believing in something, holding on to something that is false, and then acting out of such a view will be harmful to us. So covetousness, harmful intent, and holding wrong view. Yeah. Of course, when we hold onto a view, we normally think that I'm right. When nobody consciously hold on to a wrong view. But if the view that I'm holding on to turn out to be mistaken, to be wrong, then I am, in so doing, harming myself. And that makes it a non-virtuous actions. Yeah. So then the virtuous one is very simple. First, we try to refrain from doing the non-virtuous action. And the act of reframing, restraining ourselves when I have to, I feel like, let's say I got upset, and I start to hold thoughts of ill will, thoughts of harmful intent. And if I notice it, if I'm mindful of it, and I put a stop to it, then that is in itself virtuous. I'm reframing from indulging in harmful thoughts, or I'm reframing from indulging in covetousness. or I was about to say something harshly to hurt somebody because I'm pissed off. Yeah. If I manage to zip, I restrain from the action, then that is a virtuous action, restraining myself from causing hurt, causing harm. Yeah. But of course, over and above refraining or restraining, I can also be more proactive in helping others, proactive in doing something really positive for self and others. So those are also virtuous actions, right? And in karma teaching, the idea is to really kind of not so much to judge ourselves. Because sometimes we feel very guilty, like for example with anger, right? Most of us we don't really have much control over our anger. Before we know it, we are already angry, right? So we may actually feel quite bad about ourselves. We say, "Oh, something must be wrong, right? I just can't help it." Before I know it, I'm already holding those thoughts of harmful intents, thoughts of retaliation, because I was hurt, I was pissed, right? I become angry. So it's very easy when we talk about karma to feel really bad about ourselves. If we have a tendency to beat ourselves up, then this is the wonderful teaching to really beat ourselves up, because we find that we seems not able, at least not easily able to change our habits, to change our reactions. Yeah. But that is not the aim of this teaching. This teaching is not learning about virtuous and non-virtuous action and becoming more mindful of it. It's not for us to put ourselves down or to make us feel hopeless or feel guilty or feel ashamed of ourselves. In fact, it is to reveal to ourselves that, oh, no, I have this habit. No. And if I keep acting in this way, I keep pursuing this same old habit over and over again, I am actually harming myself. I might be harming others, but I'm definitely harming myself because I'm going in the opposite direction to where I intended. I want to be happy, but I'm constantly acting in such a way that I'm increasing my suffering. Right? So this is actually the aim of the teaching, to get us to really become more and more aware that we are acting in a way that is contradictory to our best wishes, to our benefits. I'm literally destroying my own happiness and peace of mind. And so it's not about making us feel more guilty, not about beating us down or make us feel really bad about ourselves. But with greater awareness, we can really see, oh, yes, I'm actually doing things that is detrimental to my own well-being, to my own happiness, or I'm becoming more and more aware that some of my behavior are actually hurting the people closest to me, or that they are not really working. They don't really help them. And so with greater awareness, hopefully we help us to make different choices, that we might be able to catch ourselves in the midst of following once again the old habits and try to change, and try to go to do things differently. Yeah. So it's about enabling us to have more choices and enabling us to make wiser choices. Right? So do not feel bad if we keep finding that we are, let's say I have a problem with attachment, very common. And then people may feel very bad about themselves because they don't seem to be able to get rid of their attachment. It's not that easy to change old habits. But the first step is to recognize that I have these habits and that I periodically keep going back to them, and to recognize that, hey, this is not helpful. This is really contradictory it's not to my own benefit or the benefit of others. Yeah. So the more we are aware of it, the more we keep allowing ourselves to notice how I behave and how that is not helpful. I'm actually making some changes deep within myself. I'm diminishing the whole of my old habits on myself. A day will come when the opportunity arises again for me to act in this way, and I suddenly find myself decided, nah, I've been there so many times. I've done this already. It didn't work. So I go this way. I change. I make a different choices. I I act in a different way. And from then, at that point, I bring about a different result. Right? So I thought it's important to emphasize this, emphasize that learning about karma, learning about all this virtuous and non-virtuous action is not so much about give us more chance to put ourselves down, more chance to feel guilty or to feel hopeless. Instead, it is to enable us to bring greater awareness into our habits, how we have been behaving, and what sort of results are coming out of it, and help us to make wiser choices. Yeah. So that is just a very brief kind of summary of some of the important points presented in the Buddhist teaching on karma. Right. So I thought might be good to end with yet a short meditation. A meditation on compassion, actually, because so often when we learn about karma, we become more judgmental. Of course, it's important to evaluate, to judge whether the action is helpful or harmful. There's nothing wrong with it. But we can become very judgmental in the sense that we're very unforgiving, so to speak. That maybe it takes us a long time to change. Some habits are difficult to overcome, and we become very negative towards ourselves, very unforgiving. And I think it's really helpful to instead to be more compassionate towards ourselves, and therefore we can also be more compassionate towards others, because we see how hard it is for us to change, how powerful some of the old habits are from our own experience. Then maybe we are more accommodating, more forgiving, and more compassionate towards others' mistakes. That when we see other people acting badly or in a harmful way, sure, we want to put a stop to it. We want to act in such a way to prevent them from harming others more or harming themselves. But can we do that from a compassionate attitude? Instead of one of judging, one of being critical, one of being, I'm right and you are wrong. I know and you don't know. Yeah. But come from a different place, a place of compassion. So I think we all need a good dose of compassion. So maybe, and compassion is one of the motivating factors. And if we strengthen compassion, then compassion will motivate us to act in such a way that even when I'm trying to point out something to another person, I want to point out that they are making a mistake or that what they are doing is harmful, I can come from a place of compassion instead of a place of anger. And the Dalai Lama, very interestingly, on quite a few occasions when I attended his public teaching, people put in requests for the Dalai Lama to lead a prayer or a minute of silence, praying for various causes, good causes, usually for world peace or peace on earth. And His Holiness have a tendency to, occasionally he forgot about it. Yeah, he sort of got ready to get off the stage. But when he remembered or reminded about it, he often suggests that we meditate on compassion instead. Because my interpretation is, he's saying, in order for there to be peace in the world, peace among countries, peace within the family, peace within ourselves, and one of the things we need to do is to act from a place of compassion. And that is something, so that kind of actions, compassionate actions, are conducive to happiness, conducive to harmony among ourselves and others, conducive to peace. Right? So let's do a very short meditation cultivating compassion. Hopefully, compassion can be the motivating factor of our actions. So the way I usually meditate on compassion is very simple. I use a few simple phrases and direct that towards myself and others. So these are my stock phrases, and you're most welcome to use them or change the wordings, add or subtract. No, and use allow the phrases to be the support to help us contact our innate compassion and to express them. Phrases such as, may I be free from pain and sorrow, may I find healing, may I find peace. Okay, so may I be free from pain is physical pain, sorrow is mental sorrow, mental unhappiness. May I find healing, may I find some way to heal the suffering. And quite often suffering is what causes us to react with anger, with hatred. So may also find healing for all those anger and hatred. And may I, through compassion, find peace. Right, so let's do a meditation on that. So see if we can just settle back into a meditation posture. So give the body a few moments to adjust, to settle back into our meditation posture. Let's start with a few deep breaths. Breathe in and out deeply. And on the out breath, remind yourself to release. So we allow the breath to settle back to its natural rhythm. We don't have to control the breath in any way. For a few moments, attending to the breath sensations. With each out breath, we can remind ourselves, remind our body and mind that they can release. Breathing out, maybe we can relax the muscles of the face. We can let in a feeling of softness into our face. Breathing out, maybe that softening, that releasing of tension and tightness can spread from the face to the rest of the body, so that gradually the body can unwind, can loosen up, and once again really settle down comfortably into the meditation. Breathing out, likewise, we can let go of thoughts or images that pop into our mind that may not be related to our meditation. Instead of getting upset with ourselves, upset with all those thoughts, we can just remind ourselves to release. We breathe out and we let go of those thoughts, those images. And we engage in compassion, meditation on compassion, with the help of a few simple phrases that best convey our understanding of what it means to be compassionate. So you may want to start with my stock phrases and change them as you go along. Let's start with ourselves, sincerely from the bottom of our heart. See if we can, as we express the words, try to hold fast to the intention of compassion, the genuine wish for ourselves and others to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I find healing. May I find peace. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I find healing. May I find peace. So for a while, slowly, mentally, see if we can mindfully repeat the phrases at our own pace, and then stay true to the intention behind the words, the intention of compassion. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I find healing. May I find peace. So coming back to the words, if we find ourselves distracted, remember to be compassionate, to not judge ourselves harshly, not to judge our distraction or drowsiness in a harsh way. Instead, see them as perfectly normal reactions. We are tired, it's the end of a long day. Be compassionate to ourselves and just come back and re-engage with the phrases, with the words, and offer compassion to ourselves. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I find healing. May I find peace. So coming back to the words, not to worry about the feelings. Feelings are sometimes difficult to bring forth on demand, but stay close to the words and be as sincere as we can be as we express our phrases of compassion, and try to express that compassionate intention, wishing ourselves and later others to not have to suffer and to be free from the causes of suffering. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I find healing. May I find peace. And then, if we are ready, we can turn our attention beyond ourselves to the other people in our life. We can bring them to mind one at a time or as a group and simply direct the same phrases towards them, extending your compassionate intention towards others in your life, wishing, may you be free from pain and sorrow. May you find healing. May you find peace. May you be free from pain and sorrow. May you find healing. May you find peace. So coming back to your compassion meditation, really attend to one or more of the people in your life, bring them to mind, remind yourself of their share of difficulties, of unhappiness, of challenges, and see if you can find within yourself, if not the feeling, at least the sincere wish, the sincere intention of compassion, and try to express it in your mind, in words, in a few simple phrases or sentences, wishing, may you be free from pain and sorrow. May you find healing. May you find peace. And then finally, during this kind of challenging time in the world with the COVID-19, we can end with just extending the scope of our attention and wishing may everyone, everywhere, may each and every one of us be free from pain and sorrow. May we find healing. May we find peace. Just one short announcement. I'm giving a public talk this Friday over YouTube at 6 p.m. And also I'm leading a morning meditation workshop on this Sunday. That will be over Zoom. You will find the details on VI website with the titles and the timing and the link. So if you are interested, do check it out, and hopefully I'll see you there. Otherwise, thank you very much for your attention this evening. I wish you a good week ahead, and hope to see you next week. So thank you and take care. Good night.